If possible, says the Apostle, so far as it lies with you, live peaceably with everyone. Shalom. That applies supremely in this conclusion to the octave of prayer for Christian unity. Peace in the household of God. I remind you, our enemies are not other Christians. We have a common front against the other side, the forces of dark which want our soul. It is true that much energy goes into infighting, but we don't have to go there, either into camps and trenches within our own church or wider afield. Our time is better spent actually with the Lord in prayer. I came across this in the Purgatory manuscript, which could help us to see things in that wider optic. It was in the 1800s that this was happening, and therefore one understands the context of the question. Are many Protestants saved? And the answer comes from Purgatory. There are, through God's gracious mercy, a certain number of Protestants who are saved. But their purgatory is lengthy and in many cases rigorous. You know why, of course? They don't believe in helping those who've gone before them. It's one of our superstitions for them. So they're left for years. It's true. Now this actually is an important aside. It's true that they haven't abused graces like many Catholics. And that is our great illness, the abuse of grace. For we are majorly exposed to the maximum of grace, and we harden ourselves to it. Compare. In Scotland, in the Presbyterian Church, which is the local church for any Scottish village, Holy Communion is celebrated quarterly. And therefore, there's a great run-up to the celebration of Holy Communion. It's a big event in the village, 4 times a year. I was brought up in the Welsh Baptist field, and normally the rhythm is once a month. We were somewhat, as it were, high church, and we had it twice, but that's because we were somewhat special, somewhat liturgically orientated. Nevertheless, there was still the prayer meeting that on Thursday would prepare for Holy Communion when it was a Communion Sunday. And I remember actually in Sunday school being challenged. The Sunday school teacher was saying that to go to the prayer meeting was the test. And it worked. I started to go. And that's where you see, my friends, sincerity. Some of those, we're going back now to the mid-60s, would have been young men in the great revival of 1904-05. They'd been switched on in that hurricane. And to see them in prayer was something else. The one presiding the prayer meeting on a Thursday evening would call only men, one after the other, who had the gift of anointing of prayer, to lead in prayer. There'd be a hymn between each one. He would come, and he would kneel! He would kneel! Close his eyes, and we would all close our eyes with him. And he'd lead us into prayer mode in the way that they had been taught. Tell me if you like that superstition. I'm not so sure. We have something, my friends, to learn. And this question of the abuse of grace is one of them. When they pray, they mean every word. Do we? How many of our rosaries are prayed? We've done our duty. But it's also true that they haven't had the singular graces of the sacraments and the other aids of the true religion. Death is an important one. I have a friend who was ordained not that long ago. He's a Premonstratensian in London, also a Welsh-speaking Baptist who was converted from our area in the north. He prepares about 40 souls for death every week, because he's chaplain to 2 big hospitals in London. And he tells me it's only really the Catholic chaplain who has a lot to do, because for some reason they all want him. And he's going around these beds a few minutes before they pass on, giving all, including usually also confirmation, because they're in an awful mess and they haven't received anything since baptism, but he gets them as far as he possibly can into good shape before they go on the long journey. That's true priestly life, not infighting. The big thing is getting home. Remember that before your next waste of time on the blogosphere. The result being that the expiation is protracted at length in purgatory. Another question separately. The Englishwoman drowned at Mont Saint-Michel. She wanted to know what happened to her. Curiously, she went directly to heaven. She had the required contrition at the moment of death, and at the same time the baptism of desire. It's a mystery at the moment of death. All this took place through the intervention of St. Michael, and she adds, blessed shipwreck. Apparently many were saved in war situations that wouldn't have been otherwise. Separately, Pius IX went straight to heaven. Notice, his purgatory was done on earth. Then this question, how do you know that Mr. P went straight to heaven, seeing that you didn't see him pass through purgatory? The answer? God made it known to me, and it's likewise He in His goodness who permits that I should know what you ask me, when I haven't seen or felt it for myself. God's justice detains us in purgatory, true, and we get what we deserve. But rest assured that His mercy and His fatherly heart don't leave us there without any consolation at all. We desire with ardour our complete union with Jesus, but He for His part desires it almost as much as we do. Now this concerns us all. Our business is union with Jesus. Don't waste your time in the peripheral. On earth, He often communicates Himself in an intimate manner to certain souls. Because, notice, few want to listen to Him, and we can push out the Lord, even from our prayer. We can be talking at Him in the whole time of our prayer. If one goes to some places of adoration, one hears this, and one sees people shuffling with all kinds of magazines, and they can't just gaze at love and let Him do the talking for 1 minute. And He delights in unveiling His secrets to them. The souls who receive His favours are those who seek to be pleasing to him in all their conduct. And again, that goes back to the main problem, the abuse of grace. In student days, I remember Speed, the head of the Welsh Christian Union, we called him that because he spoke so slowly, muttering about dydy geiriau ddim yn rasisol. Their words are not graced. He was referring to foul language coming from Catholics. Remember that before you open your mouth, which has just received Jesus to create some sound which the angels are horrified to hear. If he's Lord of all. And this, by the way, is something we can learn. They take seriously this command, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Also, the keeping of the Lord's Day. Growing up in Wales, Sunday was very different from any other day. And I don't think society has gained from losing that, to be honest. It was a family day. And you know, one of the joys I still have was the Sunday evening, when once a week we were allowed to stay up a little bit later to watch together around the fire the mystery of Perry Mason. Who done it? I'd be sitting between Dad's legs to keep warm by the fire. It was a family event. Where are family events now, with each one in his bubble? Even children don't come out to play as they used to. Each one is alone in his world on the cybersphere. Progress? The souls who receive his favours are those who seek to be pleasing to him in all their conduct, and who live and breathe for Jesus alone and for his good pleasure. Around this time, I was kneeling on this day in 1997 on the 25th of January, the feast of the conversion of St. Paul, at the high altar before the Archbishop of Siena. He ordained me a deacon and placed the Gospels in my hand with the responsibility of preaching. Responsibility of preaching. Do you know that we can learn also something on this one? They have no sacramental life like us, but boy, do they have preaching. I remember actually in school days, my best friend was the son of the Vicar of Cardiff, who is now a vicar like his father. We would sometimes go over to the Anglican church opposite the school. It was high church, and there was a young one there amongst the curates. Paul asked him one day, how long do you take to prepare a sermon? Well, after about 3 days, it's more or less ready. 3 days, and it's more or less ready. And I remember in student days, both at Aberystwyth and in Bangor, I can't get away from the fact that they knew what preaching was about, even in the campus. I was tempted sometimes to go to a big preaching event they had because they were good speakers. Saturday night at Aberystwyth and Friday night at Bangor, there were days when there would be an event. A great preacher would be called, and you'd listen there, and you'd be mesmerized. And say what you like, within their own parameters. They were actually being given good teaching on the likes of purity, marital relationships, the choice of a life partner. Things which we need to hear at the age of 20. I'm afraid that we were leaking. These were young people on fire, and they would evangelize and take even Catholics. Remember that, because Paul VI reacted against it. Why should this be happening? Why should we be so complacent? The we don't want to even be challenged by what is actually working outside our family. We can learn, my friends, in this week of Christian unity. A little bit of humility wouldn't do any harm at all. But that also should go both ways. A little bit of humility. That same Speed came into our room one night and sat down in this mode. Mind is mild. It's a big thing for me to come into this room. I had a tiny picture of Paul VI on my bed, and he started to catechize me, ask questions, at the end of which he pronounced solemnly, Arwyf yn credu, I do believe that you are a Christian. So I had permission to enter heaven. However, I am amazed and taken aback that you are a papist. Of course, he was 100% right, wasn't he? No way he'd be talked to. And my friend, that same Paul, would take me when we'd be in Oxford over weekends together to various things. And that was a whole world too. I'd listen to what was going on there. Next to Blackfriars, where I'd go to church sometimes, was Pusey Hall. Cheslin Jones, the provost. The Anglican Church. Whoa, the Anglican Church is a zoo in which every animal can do his own thing, as long as he doesn't get in the way of the animal in the cage next to him. One day on the train, I was talking to Donald Orchin, who was a friend of one of our men. I'd known Rowan Williams when he was just a priest. He was a brilliant lecturer. He'd be then, by day, he was Archbishop of Canterbury. And he was saying to Donald, my friend, Donald, pray for me. I'm having an awful job to keep this thing together. Because basically, the Anglican Church is a huge umbrella which contains every possible shade within it. Newman, of course, was part of it. And when one is, it's not easy to get out of it. Why? It's a giant of culture, a way of being. But one moment made him realize, no. Do you know what it was? It's when Parliament appointed a bishop in Jerusalem for Anglicans and all Protestants. Do you know what that meant? He saw the problem and was received into the Catholic Church, losing all his moorings and security. But he had peace of heart, and that will only come when there's truth. At Bangor, Karen had been received to the Catholic Church at Bangor, and she was doing her research on Newman for her thesis. And she had a lot of good things to say, including this. Yes, they've got fervour, but it's better that they be in the truth, because the soul